today is a very special episode. Got a special guest, friend of show, Jen Perlman is on. I'm going to introduce her and then bring her right up, and we're going to get right into these topics. Jen Perlman, if you don't know, she announced she is running and she's going hard. She is really out here making the case to get rid of Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida's 25th district. We know her from Generational Change, an amazing podcast, the podcast I refer to as the War Room of the Left. She's a practicing attorney, and she has grassroots in activism, and she is one of the nicest people that I know that I've seen get involved in politics. Jen, I'm going to bring you on here. What would make a nice person like yourself, a good-hearted person, get into the ring with somebody like Debbie Wasserman Schultz?
Well, it's just, I've never heard of myself referred to as nice before. So that was really cool. That was interesting. I would say that I'm kind, but I don't know how nice I am. And I definitely, I don't ever start with people, but they shouldn't start with me either. So it's one of those things. I have my moments. So Debbie's been my congresswoman for 20 plus years, because then also before this, she was in our state house. And she just takes corporate money hand over fist. She does insider trading. She's filthy. She's not really popular other than with our little insider group of, primary voter Democrats that some of them tend to be very sycophantic. But we only get a 14% voter turnout in a primary. So if you can imagine, it's really not that many people that are keeping her in that seat. And so she's not beloved. People, like, I meet more people on the regular basis that cannot stand her than do like her. I'd say it's like 100 to 1. And she's just, look, I mean, most people nationally know her from, especially if they were Bernie supporters, or even if they're just democracy supporters, regarding what she did when she was chair of the DNC back in 2016. And, the fact that she's still sitting in her congressional seat and that she does have sycophants is a sad commentary on so many things. But it's just, enough is enough. And right now, specifically as a Jewish woman, I am just beyond disgusted with her. Like, the idea that this woman is representing Jewish people in any way, shape, or form, let alone being held out as some authority on CNN. But really all it is she's the mouthpiece for AIPAC. Literally the mouthpiece from AIPAC. She just came back from her trip to Israel. Literally just like the other day. She's been there on an AIPAC funded trip. And hanging out with Bibi Netanyahu, taking pictures. She's really doubling down on this. And I think that speaks volumes. I think her hubris knows no bounds. And I'm just tired of it. And quite honestly, if we were just going to look at policy, I'm better. I mean, I actually care for the least of these. I'm trying to have policies where everyone has health care and a living wage. This is somebody who supports trade agreements, has no problem taking money from fossil fuel companies. This is somebody who is just in with very nefarious interests. And I just don't see how that could ever be in the best interest of any district.
Yeah. And we recently heard here I just saw this today, that 7 staff members of World Central Kitchen, they're a nonprofit organization, were reportedly killed in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza. And I bring that up because you talk about Debbie, and even if you have that position that Israel should be indiscriminately killing innocent women and children, you don't even acknowledge it. You don't even, and I think at least one American citizen died in that airstrike from Israel. Could you imagine paying tax dollars and kind of, I know we have a little bit of disagreement on that, but
I'm going to get you on MMT when you say tax dollars, but that's okay. I mean, let's just call it our collective resources and say we shouldn't be supporting it with any of us. Like, it doesn't matter where the money comes from. It's ours. So we should not be like sending it to, well, I believe any nation in violation of international law should not be anybody that gets our resources in any way. I'm not saying we can't ever discuss things with people like that, because that's the only way you could ever maybe get people to comply with international law. But any country in violation of international law should absolutely get nothing from us. that's just, but then again, the irony is how many international laws are we in violation of too? So,
Yep.
there's that. But no, Israel is like there. This is a rogue state, and at this point, to me, the only way this is ever going to end is with like a united like nations type of force going in on the ground and basically taking over and essentially creating, I don't know, some sort of intermediary situation. But like these people cannot be in control of their own state anymore. They just cannot be. This to me is like Nazi Germany at this point. So I mean, this is not like the fact that people are still debating what words to use is also insane to me.
Yeah, it's I've been very hard on our channels, more of the, I try to say the populist right, and then I think your channel's more the populist left, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
overlap. We talk when we talk about a lot of overlap, and we've got overlap here. I've been very hard on MAGA for not speaking out against this.
Yeah.
And I think there's a fear of, well, the squad is speaking out against this, and I don't like the squad. I just think that's part of it.
Right.
So I can't agree with them. But tell me, like, why can't we get past that and just say this is wrong? I don't care who agrees or disagrees. I got my own morals. I know this is wrong.
I don't know. And all I can do is do that, right? And like just sort of put that out there as a suggestion of a way to be. It bothers me to no end when we're talking about the people in Congress, and this is my best bet. And I am not saying this with any hostility or judgment, just sort of reason, right? If people are concerned for keeping a job for whatever reason, even with the best motives, even if you want to keep your seat because you know you are in the best interest of your community, right? Once you feel the need to hold on to your seat, I think that kind of compromises what you're willing to do. And it's valid, right? Like you see what's happening to people not being able to keep their seats. And the problem is, on the one hand, it bothers me because do your job regardless of keeping your job. But on the other hand, the people that organizations like AIPAC are putting in there instead are not what we want. So you know, it's like they have to sort of have a fine line for some, like the people in the squad. They have to walk this sort of fine line because you want them to go all out. But if they lose their seat, you're not going to like that either. So it's really, it's complicated. You know, and I will only be able to know for myself what that is and what that feels like. It's hard for me to judge what other people do, how hard they're willing to go and how far they're willing to stick their neck out. And it's a personal choice. It is. It's a personal. I mean, I can only do what I do, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I talk about it because from the standpoint of your district that you're running for right now in the primary in Florida is a heavy blue district.
Yes.
So if you're a populist on the right and you're more MAGA or something like that, you have no chance of winning that district.
None.
So what you need in that district, somebody who you can talk to, a real person.
Correct.
Not Debbie. So that it matters to me because I would love to see you in Congress negotiating with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I don't know that I can take her seriously sometimes. You know, when she talks about Jewish space lasers, I'm going to have to lose my crap, Osiris. Okay, come on, man. So, you know, some of it's political theater. And the truth is, I will never know until I'm ever there, right? Like, I don't know what's real, what's political theater, who people really are besides what you see them on TV. It's like anything. You know, you don't know till that is my district. There it is, people.
There's the district right there, Florida 25. Yeah. So tell me about how to penetrate that, because Debbie's been there for what, 20-something years? She's been there forever, right?
Forever. Yeah, she has, but our district has also changed, literally and figuratively, right? So in 22, our lines actually changed per the 2020 census, just like everybody got redistricted. And as much as people would probably like to gripe about gerrymandering, this is actually the least gerrymandered I think that this district has ever been. So, you know, it's pretty decent. But so what happened was we lost the portion of Dade County that used to be in our district, which was very heavily Debbie's part of it. I mean, she had one of her offices there. It's very Jewish. It's a very Jewish, very affluent down the coast of, you know, the northern coast of Dade County. And it's, you know, those were her people. And that whole portion of the district has been taken out and replaced by an area called Miramar, which is a regular working class, canvassable in most places, not gated, like most places, just regular neighborhoods of regular people. It is also a very good mix of Haitian and Latino, which none of those things favor her. Anything that's canvassable and like working class is never going to be favorable to her. So I feel like our district literally changed, but it's not going to be easy. We still have a very large, Jewish population. For the most part, the very ardent Zionists do tend to be Republican, so they don't vote in our primary. But no, I mean, it's definitely an issue, but it is what it is. But in the meantime, there are 75,000 Muslims in Broward County that cannot host things and iftars for me and invite me to things fast enough. So it'll be very interesting to see.
7,000? That's
75,000.
75,000 Muslims? Wow, I didn't know the Muslim population was so large there.
In Broward. Now, about half of that is in my district. Because we only take up about half of Broward, like my district, yeah.
So I can see why they could be a little bit scared about who you could reach. And to me, that would be concerning if you're the establishment, the regime, and these are people that you're not really reaching. I don't see how that happens.
They can't.
But if you can reach them, that's a problem for them.
It's a gold mine in a way, because for the most part, the Muslim community, and I'm learning this because this month has been like the coolest. Like I've been doing like around the world Ramadan dinners with all the different groups. It's been amazing. But I'm learning a lot. And one of the things I know, like politically from people that are community leaders in the Muslim community, is that while the majority of them are registered as Democrats, most of the time they don't participate in politics and definitely not in primaries. And so these are people now that are extremely organized and motivated and registered as Democrats that don't usually participate in a primary. And so, yeah, that should be concerning. And let me tell you, they're angry. Seriously, across the board, they're angry and they feel silenced and they feel like nobody is listening to them. They feel like nobody is speaking for them. And quite honestly, it makes me sad and it's disgusting that any group of people feels like that. And during their holy month, and they're fasting during the day in honor of their holy month, like this is their most sacred month. And their congressional representative is hanging out with Bibi Netanyahu during the month of Ramadan. Like, it's the most, you got to read the room. It's really not good.
So let's talk about this from a strategy standpoint a little bit. This is James Carville, the 27-second clip that's kind of going viral, but I'm going to play this and I want to hear if you agree with him on this here. This is from, I think it was on MSNBC.
I've been very vocal about this. It's horrifying. Our numbers among younger voters, I vote particularly younger blacks, younger Latinos, or whatever, but whatever younger, I don't like younger people of color, particularly males. We're not shedding them. They're leaving in the droves. I've been very vocal about this.
Ooh, he said they're leaving in the droves. What do you think?
I know they are. I know not only are they leaving in droves, but less and less people are registering as Democrats. The last number, and maybe you can look it up, because in my mind, I could have sworn I saw like 850,000, 800 and something thousand. And that is the number of more Republicans than Democrats in our state. Maybe you can find it. I could have sworn I saw that number in my head, but it's how can you win this state? Why would they waste any resources here? But what's even more interesting is that he is actually the poster child for the reason why the party is not having young people in it. It's because of people like him. And we have them at our local level too. And they're just stuck in the 90s. They have no concept. They don't care really about the young people. They just want their votes, similar to how they feel about Black people. So it's just one of those categories that they feel the need they have to target, but not serve. You see, they target them, but they don't serve them. So I agree. He's not getting, let me tell you, I talk to young people all the time. The majority of people that come out and help, support us, volunteer for, they're all kids to me. And they're all disgusted with this and people like him.
So my thing is thinking about it. The challenge seems to be to break through the noise. You know, the machine has all the money, so they
Yeah.
kind of set even though the young people we're talking about don't really watch CNN like that, they still set the narrative and what's acceptable by what's on CNN. And how do you cut through that? You're running as a Democrat. Tell us about that strategy. And I'm going to compare it to Trump in a way. Trump ran as a Republican. He's not a Republican. And you're
Right.
running as a Democrat. Is that a fair comparison? You're not really a Democrat, or are you like an old school Democrat?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Democrat since the day I registered to vote in, oh my God, 1989.
Well, I was, I
1989.
was going to say, don't date yourself. It's all public.
And I've been a Democrat with the exception of 1 year after the Bernie fiasco where I did a Dem exit protest. But I've been a Democrat my whole life because that's what my parents were. That's what my grandparents were. It was just because I come from working people. So to me, it was always in my mind, Democrats are the working people. The Republicans are more the management class. It was like a labor versus management thing. And so I know that we're not at that. I know we're so far, I know that is not the case anymore. But it just, at this point, to me, there really is no difference. They all take money from the same nefarious sources. But at the end of the day, I would be more aligned. I would be closer on the spectrum to a Democrat than a Republican if you were literally just looking at their literal platforms, right? I'd still be closer to a Democrat. But this Democratic Party does not represent me, but I think they represent nobody except for a very small elitist group of people and academics. But I'm trying to change that. And locally, I have no choice. We are in a blue district in a closed primary state. The only way to unseat anybody in these positions is in a primary. So that's just the way it is. And it is strategy, but it's also really, I've always been a Democrat,
Yeah, and you sound like you want to make the Democratic Party what you want it to be. And that's
make it great again.
You're going to make the Democrat Party great again. Exactly. And that's where I kind of put the comparison is, to me, you have to infiltrate one of the major parties. That's the only path forward at any of these levels. I mean, each area is different, but with how you laid it out, how it is there, you have no choice but to put the D. So if you're watching this and you say, well, we've got Jen Perlman on, D next to her name. Don't just look at the D.
No.
Just like you wouldn't look at the R you're not going to compare, a corporate Mitt Romney to Donald Trump, even no matter how you feel about Donald Trump.
Right.
You're not going to compare a corporate D to Jen Perlman.
Correct.
So that's a big distinction. How do you get that out there for the young to get them out? You said you're seeing them kind of volunteer and stuff, but how do you get them to a primary is not exciting for a lot of young people. How do you get them out there?
It's, really what makes it exciting is a lot of people really have animosity towards Debbie, and it keeps it very interesting and it keeps it fresh and lively. I mean, sometimes she's a gift that way. On a national level, fundraising is a different sort of issue, right? Like national level, we're putting out all sorts of stuff on issues, but also about her. And we're definitely focusing on shortcomings of our incumbent because that's the reason that we're doing this. So that's big for fundraising. And the message is getting out there. And truthfully, because of her notoriety, it's really its own it's become its own animal at this point. The fact that I may or may not be somebody that a lot of people like as a candidate, there are so many people that dislike her, right? So it's a combination of different things. But locally, we're just very active locally. We're very on the ground. We're very involved in the community. We go to all the different types of events. We know the leaders of the different organizations. We're in with all the people on city councils, and we've been working this district in that way as a service and community for 5 years. So it's, people, when you look at these races from where you are, or when we would look at how Nina's race went or anybody's race where they didn't win, and you say, well, they had this much money and they were this big. But what it really comes down to is votes on the ground. So we're really running two campaigns, right? We run the campaign, the national kind of campaign for fundraising. And then we run what's our community local, based campaign where we're boots on the ground and really working in the community. And that's what the fundraising supports us doing. So it's really two different campaigns. And it's, let me tell you, it's like playing chess.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the funding, you got the website right there. And let's
Yes.
take a look. You have it coming up in a couple days, April 4th, with Nina Turner. What's going on with this
Absolutely.
online event?
Yeah. So we are having an online Zoom. People will be able to ask questions. You know, there's going to be certain topics that we're going to cover. And I'm not even entirely sure what they are. I know that there will be I know that we talked about it, but I don't remember what we decided on. But there will be a certain set of subjects. Not saying things are off limits, but just in the, you know, in the sake of just having engaging conversation, we have certain things, and people will be allowed to ask questions and be involved in a conversation. So if you ever wanted to, you know, ask, you know, Sister Nina, she is just I feel like when she talks, it's like going to church. So that's sort of what I think of whenever she's talking. It's so like inspiring. And so it's always like seems gospel to me. But yeah, I would encourage anybody to just come on, help out, get involved, get in the discussion. And even if, you know, even if you can give us $5, it's a matter of I call everybody who contributes shareholders. And if you're monthly donors, that's really where I consider you to be an official shareholder, in all honesty. I mean, like a $5 a month, then you're a shareholder. But just anybody can come out and just, you know, participate in the conversation. And it's helpful.
That's great. So visit the website. It's www.gen2024.org.
Yep.
Visit that, donate. You are on with, just to tell you, if you don't know Jen, the type of person she is, she was on the first time I ever knew about you, you were on with Tim Pool.
Yeah.
That was like 2-3 years ago or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then recently you were on with Lukerowski.
Yeah.
What a great, tell me about that. If you know, this is someone who is willing to talk to people, libertarians and MAGA and people, populist left. Tell me about the experience with, I mean, this is just a random question, but the homie Luke Rakowski, I'm a big fan if you don't know. And
really?
Ian Crossland was on that episode too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a
That's
friend.
crazy.
Yeah, Luke and Ian are really cool. Actually, you know, Luke had relocated, and so he's down here in South Florida. So it's easy and convenient. We actually went to a gathering that he hosted for some of his for his local patrons, and we went to this gathering that he had in Fort Lauderdale, and it was really fun. And we met a lot of cool people like CanCon, who we ended up having on our show. I don't know if you know his show, CanCon.
No.
It's the Cannabis Conservative.
Oh.
Yeah, and he's a friend of Luke's, and I met him through that. And yeah, I'll talk to anybody. I honestly, if people want to have an honest conversation and within reason, yes. Now, if you start, you know, quoting scripture, we're done. You know, if you start, you know what I mean, like name calling, it's like certain things. But otherwise, I'll talk to anybody. But I like Luke, and the thing is, we're not that different. That's why I hate labels. Same with Ian Crossland. Like there are a lot of things that we have in common, and there's things we don't, you know, but there are a lot of things we have in common. And yeah. And they're fun. The truth is they're fun and I like them. And no, I'm sure I don't agree with them on things, you know, but when did that become such an issue, Osiris? Like when did that become like everything is literally one or the other? Like am I hallucinating that that's what's happening?
Yeah, I think there's been a very concerted, centralized control on what you can say and what you can't say.
Yeah.
And then everything got funneled online. We didn't have that growing up, like the way it is now. Yeah. And I think it is very curated, whether it's on purpose or not. You have your own tunnel of people and someone else has their own tunnel of people. And really the algorithm is not friendly when you jump from tunnels. Back and forth.
I know. I get blocked. They don't like me. I just got my thing taken off. I don't even know what it's called. TikTok.
It was TikTok.
Right. It was taken off at TikTok. The video, the clip was taken off at TikTok. And, you know, I'm not surprised. I mean, look, they're being threatened basically by the ADL in terms of even being allowed to exist past however many months till they have to divest from whatever Chinese entanglements they have. But somehow I don't think that it's the Chinese that have a problem with what I'm saying. Somehow I don't think it's the Chinese that are looking at me. They probably don't even know who I am. However, the ADL, I am quite certain knows exactly who I am.
Oh, we know that for sure. I have the clip. This is the TikTok, and this is one of the clips I saw. I'm like, Jen is not here to play games.
And I am so sick of Jews being portrayed as victims. Jews are not victims. Jews are survivors. And if somebody could show me some place where there is some sort of like systemic oppression of Jewish people, like say in this country we have with Black people or indigenous people, then maybe. But from where I'm sitting, you've got what, 35, 38 people that are Jewish in Congress based on what is our percentage. You have how many Jewish people are in the tops of whatever industries. Jews are not
going to start talking about the Rothschilds next.
Well, it's like, I'm just like, at some point you stop playing the victim card,
Right.
you know, it's like,
Yeah.
we are not victims. And just because people don't like us and say mean things and paint swastikas, get over yourself.
Unbelievable.
And I am
TikTok,
so sick of Jews.
TikTok pulled that down. Are you
Oh, yeah.
serious?
Yeah.
For what? What do you think?
I
What
don't
reason did they
know.
give you?
Well, first of all, let it be known to all and people who know me, I am not on social.
Yeah.
I don't handle social media. So you would have to ask Peter if
Yeah.
there was ever any sort of explanation. I don't know, but I mean, look, do we really wonder? Do
Yeah, I
we
know.
really?
We know.
Like, how ridiculous.
I know. Why are we doing this? We know.
Right. It's basically either somebody like Debbie or Jonathan Greenblatt or, you know, somebody got their
Mhm.
panties in a bunch. And I know that I'm probably somewhat threatening to them. You know, there are no anti-Zionist Jews that are running for Congress. I don't even see enough Jews standing up enough on this issue to begin with that are in Congress. So I honestly, they should be concerned. They should be concerned. But the truth is, people that are acting genocidal should be concerned because there will be a reconciliation.
Yeah, the TikTok, speaking of TikTok, the TikTok bill is with the Senate right now. They haven't taken a vote or anything. They're probably doing their write-ups or whoever does the write-ups. What is your take on the ban? It's not really just TikTok, but it's basically tiered towards TikTok. What's your take on that bill? If you were in Congress, in the House, where would you vote on that? Where would you have voted on that bill?
Oh, I would never support a ban on any sort of media or censorship whatsoever. I don't support bans. I don't support mandates. That is not the purpose of our government. Also, you know, the idea that this is somehow, first of all, their argument that somehow it's because of the Chinese people or the government infiltrating or getting involved and disturbing our democracy. And the fact that somebody like Nancy Pelosi can say that with a straight face, what disturbs our democracy, Nancy, are corporate people like you who have sold it off. That's what has disturbed the democracy. China, they're just making smart investments. So, you know, to me, it's off the wall that they would even blame China. But the reality is that's not what their problem is. Their problem is that is how young people are being educated on Palestine and are basically being brought into the resistance. And that is what they don't want, because it has nothing to do with China. And what is China do? What are they doing? What is their end game? What is their end game? Like, it's absurd. And even if that, like, it's all ridiculous, but it really has to do with Zionism, and it has to do with silencing the resistance to the last bastion of white settler colonialism. And that is what they're holding on to.
When I look at the TikTok bill, I kind of break it down between basically any bill. It's a power struggle between people, just the power to the common people,
Yes.
companies, and the government.
Mm-hmm.
And what I view the TikTok bill as, and you can say technically it's not a ban, but what it is saying that you give us control of the TikTok. That app is really cool, isn't it? The possibilities that you can do with that app. Give that control back to the government. It says take it from the company and give it to the government. And I'm here like the people looking at them to kind of fight for power. And I'm like, the government could be giving the people power. The government could be protecting the people with the bill. And until you do something like that, I'm completely out. Now, I do have some concerns about China. I've talked about before, but in this particular realm, this is all about Israel. When the war popped off, I don't know if Israel miscalculated this or what, but they didn't realize the propaganda or the other side of the story could be told so powerfully.
I just don't think they care. They clearly don't care. Are you kidding me? This is a rogue state at this point. The only way this will be brought under control is with an intervention from international sources. This is not going to just stop. They're not going to stop. So they are in violation of international law. The criminal or the court of justice has already said that there is a strong likelihood that there is a genocide occurring and has already issued a stop, a ceasefire to them, like all of it. They do not care. And yet they just bombed 5 aid workers whichever charity was delivering food that they knew was there, that they had coordinated to let them in. That's intentional. Like, this is absurd that we're still debating this. I give everybody, you had maybe a 3-week grace period after October 7th to get your head on straight with this. And if it wasn't, then you are just not on the right side of history, because it's been obvious at this point. This is off the wall. And now they're talking about sending F-15s over there. Now they're putting together a whole new deal. We cannot allow this to continue. It's just, this is ridiculous at this point.
Yeah. So what are you hearing from your constituents down there? People you meet in the streets and stuff about Israel. Is that one of their top concerns, or what are you hearing from them? Is it economy, or are you hearing immigration? I don't know.
It's a combination down here right now. Most of the events I have been at the past month, in all, to be, completely transparent, have been Ramadan events, because it's been Ramadan. So the majority of people that I have been around, their primary focus is Gaza. I was at a table the other night with a man who lost 30 family members. So, and could barely get through talking about it. Wow. So this is when you're in that, you can't think about anything else. Like, they are the people in the Muslim community in a lot of cases down here, they're living in that adrenaline. Like, they're like this. It's taking years off of all of their lives, and they're here. So, that's what's going on. But when you get out broader than that, one of our biggest things here is insurance. The property insurance and what's happening. And we have a lot of seniors in our district that are basically being edged out of their communities because they're not going to be able to afford to maintain their condos, but yet they can't afford a lateral move either. We're really ending up in a situation where there's going to be a bunch of senior citizens that have nowhere they can go. So that's also a big concern here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be a huge concern. So for those who aren't, I think I've only touched on this once. The property, it's happening across the country. I've seen some in California as well, but in particular in Florida. Yeah. What's going on with the insurance type of issue down there? I heard it with some criticisms of DeSantis when he was running. He wasn't really doing enough back home to kind of look at it, address it. But tell us about that.
It's like anything else. It's predatory. This is a predatory industry. So what's happening is nobody is regulating. There is no regulation of the insurance industry in the state. Like, it's out of control what they're able to raise their rates to. So what's happening is that people that are on fixed incomes, it affects everybody. Okay. Like, it affects everybody, but obviously people that are more vulnerable, it's harder. Right. So yes, wealthy people are paying higher money in taxes too, but they're not worrying about being on the street. But what's happening, especially in fixed income older communities, is you have people that they don't have a mortgage, and maybe they do, but it's small, or maybe they're even renters and they're just barely able to get by. Right. And now you're going to increase their assessment through their homeowners or condo association because of the increase in the insurance premiums. And they will not be able to afford to make those assessments, and they will end up having to leave their place, and they will have to sell. And they will not get what the property is going to be worth. And then you also see that at the same time, corporations, big corporations, BlackRock, Vanguard, those big corporations that are buying up so many of the condos and just sitting on them because they don't really care if they're vacant or not. So, because they can ingest that, right? Like, doesn't matter to them. So between that and the property insurance, you're seeing this dearth of housing. People can't afford it. And unfortunately, we have a very large population of seniors, and they're scared. I was actually went over and spoke with some people at it's Century Village. It's the largest 55 and older in our district. And I went over to talk with some of the leaders. Each building is like a different association, and there's 32, which is why it's so complicated and nothing can get done. But they're terrified, and nobody's doing anything for them. And they're really, I don't know what's going to happen, but there are people that are going to end up being unhoused in the mass with this insurance problem. And it is something that the state can help. This is something that can be dealt with by executive, like the executive branch. This is something that can be regulated. They choose not to, like they choose not to regulate pharma, like they choose not to regulate the beef industry, like all of it. But yeah, basically our seniors and other vulnerable communities are being raped by insurance companies, and the state is allowing it to happen. That's what it is.
Well, great explanation. From my thought on that is the power structure again from the struggle from companies and the local government, this time the state government, Florida, and the people. To give the people more power, I think you need choice, because there's only a few large insurance companies down there, right? It's only a handful.
Yeah. And it's gotten less and less. I think that there's only like 2 now. Like I honestly think it might be down to like 2. Somebody's got to look it up. No, it's not good. And it's such a monopoly. It's the same as with the utilities. It's all of everything is becoming one thing. Like we're all going to have to just like wear chips and like attach ourselves to like the Matrix. I mean, it's all going to be owned by one thing or one person, preferably not someone like, oh, that's sweet, Teresa. Yeah, no, Jill Stein's infinitely smarter than me.
So I got a chat on here. Thank you, Teresa. Says, I could see Jen running with Jill as her VP, actually. I could see that too. I could see it too.
Well, look, we had Jill on the show. That would be, look, I mean, that's like one of those things where that's really sweet, Teresa. That's as cool as when I was on a show and somebody compared me to Claire Daly. That was like one of the coolest things ever. You know who Claire Daly is, right?
Yeah, we talked about that's the Texas. Is that the Texas one?
No.
Oh, no. Oh, sorry.
She's the redheaded Irish woman over in Parliament.
Oh.
She is something fierce. So, the Irish have been on top of the Palestine thing from day one, right? Like they're on because they understand this. And she is, I do not remember the names, what they call their Congress people, but she is one of said people in the Parliament for Ireland. And she has feisty. I love her. She's badass. And so when somebody compared me to her, it was like really cool. I mean, we both have long hair, but yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah. So if you don't know, Jill Stein's the Green Party candidate for president. Who was the one I was thinking about? Remember you told me about the ex-governor that rode
Ann Richards.
Okay.
Ann Richards. She was badass too. Yeah. That was when Democrats had some element of coolness. You know what I mean? Like before it was sort of like this, just like intellectual academic tech elitism people. Ann Richards drove a Harley. Like she was just cool, plus Texans are cool,
Yeah. So that's how I kind of put you in that same boat because because I seen, when you announced that you were running again, it was great to hear. And I could just see that you were like, it's game time.
Yeah.
It's like, so how did you to me, it feels like you mentally just went to like, okay, I'm not playing with you. And you went on with the first one I saw was Kim. I think that's where you made the announcement on Kim first, right? Was it before you're even your own show?
I'm not sure. Yeah, it might have been. It might have been. And then I had my show that night. Like I did, her show was but I don't think hers dropped. I don't remember. Okay. Look what you're asking me to remember. I don't know. It's a month
I'm
ago.
a big Kim Iverson fan, so
yeah. I like Kim a lot. I've always liked Kim. And I will always defend Kim. She does the work. She does the research. She puts in the time. She uses her brain. She changes her mind when new information comes to light, like a reasonable person. And I just respect her. And again, it's one of those things where like, well, but she thinks this. All right. I mean, I don't know what people expect me to do with that. I know people think different things. They do. It's okay. But yeah, I did on Kim. And I'm not playing. I mean, look, I'm pushing 53. I'm not going to do this again. We held off and running in 22. I knew it would be a bad move. I knew that we didn't know our district lines. A lot of things weren't in place. And we've spent the past few years really working the district and knowing, working on strategy and thinking about how we can make things better and serving the community and just being a fixture and just, keeping it in the back of my mind that, maybe we would do that again. And now it just feels like somewhat of a perfect storm. I'm very much into the organic feeling of it. Like I kind of just let it go, like I see, it feels right between the district lines changing, between just what's going on right now in the world, between how I feel about Gaza. Like, it's just all like, it's boiling. So why not? Right.
Yeah, so that kind of explains why you didn't run last time, and
Yeah.
now it feels like it's the right time with the district lines probably helping you, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure it helps us. And it also tells me that I don't think Debbie is as popular in Tallahassee with the Republicans as she once was, because there is no way that she was on board with this change. Like, this must have been, there is no way that this would have been okay with her. And yet it happened. So that's also a sign. Like, just certain things, like you just read the tea leaves. I just call it reading the tea leaves, right? And certain commissioners and people that she relied on to sort of pull levers behind the scenes are no longer sitting there anymore. Just certain people in labor leader positions that were always pulling levers behind the scenes for her aren't there anymore. And, I have been also working in the community for a long time. So I just think that the playing field's leveled out locally in a lot of ways. And yeah, it's still an uphill look. She's still an incumbent. She's still going to have tons of money. AIPAC is going to probably throw money at me, against me, saying, I'm a self-loathing Jew and I support terrorists and, whatever. I'm a Hamas lover and I don't know. So, it's not like it's going to be easy to do it. And it's certainly not a given by any stretch. It's still a long shot. And I tell people that. But, I feel optimistic given that we got close to 30% in a pandemic and raised $400,000 in 20 and didn't really know anything or what we were doing. And I was kind of like just getting into the political scene locally in that way. And now 4 years later, I don't know, there's a lot of variables, not the least of which is that we can canvass the whole time because we don't have a COVID problem. We lost 8 weeks of canvassing as a grassroots campaign in 20. And that is significant. So, so we're coming at it in a very different, we're coming at it more, we're not at home plate anymore. I don't know if we're quite on second base, but like, I feel like we have a little bit of leverage that we didn't have last time, just from name recognition alone.
Good. I mean, you and Peter are just brilliant strategists, because that's what you do on your show a lot. You talk about strategy, and I see you working. You're like, 30% last time. We lost 8 weeks, and now the tenor of the country is totally different. Who's speaking out against what's happening? So it's all kind of aligning. Where, I mean, how many votes do you think you need to hit? Was it 50,000? I heard you say one time.
We probably don't need that many. We probably don't, but that's what I have in my mind. Like that's the safe spot, 50,000 votes. And look, it's not an easy thing to get, but if there were ever a perfect storm of opportunity for it to happen, it's this election. And I will say this, and I've said it before, and Peter has said it before. If this person is not unseated now in this like perfect storm of events, then she will sit there forever like Nancy Pelosi. She will be there for another 30 years. And that to me is one of those things that we have an opportunity to prevent from happening, which I think is significant. And it just, the world works in mysterious ways. Things happen for a reason. Things happen at certain times. You don't ever get a perfect storm back. So you got to strike when it's ready. And that's just what we're trying to do, and also we're still serving, that's really the point. I just get a bigger platform.
Yeah, that's excellent. What are you talking about as far as economics down there? I mean, the insurance issue is obviously an economic one, but you're very big on doing the right thing economically for all people in a positive manner. What are the issues in the district economically that you're kind of looking at?
Well, as anywhere else, it's the housing crisis and the unaffordability of housing. And I really find it interesting that we look at it from that perspective and we say it's about affordable housing. No, the housing is just housing. It's about having a living wage. If you have a living wage, then you can afford housing. So, we're looking at the object of what with the price and saying that that's the problem. No, the problem is that we don't have a living wage in this country. That's the problem. But you see what I'm saying? But yes, obviously we want people to be able to afford homes. That is one of my biggest issues is housing. And there are a lot of things we can do at the federal level regarding regulation of these big monopoly corporations that are going to own all single family homes. There's also a lot of things that we can do to help renters in terms of alleviating some of their prices, their costs. There needs to be rent control. And there's a lot of things that can be done, let's say, as more stopgap interim things to help people that are unhoused versus long-term economic planning. For me, I support the idea of a federal job guarantee. If you have a federal job guarantee, a la what FDR did, we've done this before. This is nothing so extraordinary. But if you have a program like that and that sets the living wage, you don't need a minimum wage, because private companies are going to have to compete with the federal job guarantee living wage, which will automatically have to be a living wage. And by living wage, I'm going to be very clear what that means, because people don't really know what a living wage is. Okay. So anybody who is working a 40-hour work week, okay, I'll debate with the 32s, you want to go to 32, whatever your full-time work week, anybody who's working a full-time job should be able to afford a place to live on a quarter of their income. Okay. A quarter of somebody's income needs to be able to afford what we decide, whether it's a 2-bedroom apartment, whatever the average is in an area. Okay. Anybody who is spending more than a quarter of their income on housing is house poor and is very precarious position. Those are people that can't afford a $400 emergency. That is not being free. That is not liberty. That is not being free. That's being a wage slave. So my thought is, if you have a living wage, meaning that everybody is making what it costs, again, no more than a quarter of your income to pay for average housing, and you do it by region. I mean, we figure that stuff out by region. It's not rocket science. Clearly, people living in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, don't need the same wage as people living in Manhattan. I mean, clearly. But that's the way this works. And that's the long-term plan. But in the short term, there have got to be things that are put down regulatory on these businesses that are basically taking over entire single-family housing in this country. We are having a generation of people that have no possibility of owning a home or ever creating generational wealth. And that should be very scary. And if you're a capitalist, it should be scary, because these are people that will never have enough disposable income to buy all your crap. So you cannot have a healthy economy if you don't have consumers, and you cannot have consumers if they're spending every single dollar that they have on keeping a roof over their heads. So at the end of the day, a living wage is the solution. But I mean, I support any and all regulations that help people afford to have a home, whatever that is, whatever that looks like. Like I'm policy flexible, but yeah. This is more than half the people in Seattle that are unhoused work full-time jobs. That is not a housing problem. That's a living wage problem. Like, we can build the houses. We don't, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have Mike Has Bad Needs, friend of the show, is asking. So you mentioned FDR. I'm not too familiar with the guaranteed job I've heard of it, but I'm not really familiar with what that is. But Mike Has Bad Needs says, just in general, how do you guarantee a job?
Okay. So actually, and I highly recommend, there is a book called Case for a Federal Job Guarantee, written by, it's like Paulina Chernova, something Russian. She's brilliant. But anyway, so there are models of this. We have done this. And instead of, let's say, for example, let's start out with this. Picture all the unemployment offices. Now take the un and cross off the un. Okay. So now you have employment offices. And what you have is you have jobs that are federally funded, not federally run. So it's run local. It's run by your local businesses, local organizations, whether they're NGOs. There's different services at the local level that can distribute and implement, but it's federally funded. So what that means, and there's multiple ways that people can be in that jobs program. It is not digging holes. So for example, that's it. See, Cherneva. Thank you. You're the best. See, that's what I'm talking about. So for example, this is just like a hypothetical. Let's say that you care for an old or an elderly ailing parent, right? Your parent needs a full-time caregiver, and not only won't Medicare cover that, because we know that you can't, but you can't afford to do that. So then you have to stop working and take care. Imagine that scenario, right? Now imagine if that person caregiving for their parent was able to collect a paycheck for doing that. Okay. Imagine if we valued and prioritized things like caregiving, education, arts, you know, and it could also be infrastructure jobs. Let's look at it also from a technical side of the point. There is no shortage of infrastructure work that needs to be dealt with in this country. Did we just not see the Baltimore Bridge? We have some serious issues. So to say that we don't have, you know, places for people to have jobs is just silly, right? So these things would be, it would, and her book is amazing. So it's federally funded, but you're essentially, it goes down through agencies. So let's say you would have your local employment office, and that's who oversaw the people that say you were caring for your ailing parent. That would be where you might go through that agency, and that would be that's where your paycheck is coming from. So it's federally funded, locally administered, and it basically assures that everybody is entitled to a living wage. So now the person who's caring for their ailing mother and can make a living doing that, now, in order for some other company to hire that person at any point, for whatever reason, they're going to have to pay them at least what they're making from the federal job guarantee, or it's not going to be worth their while to go work for someone else. So the private sector is going to have to be competitive to get people that are working in the federal job guarantee. And not everybody has to do, there's still a private sector. Do not get me wrong. And in fact, a lot of these people that are working, it is in the private sector. Their position is being paid for by the federal job guarantee through different businesses and organizations and like that. That's how it's administered. But not everybody has to. If people are happy and well paid in their job, by all means, you're happy and well paid in your job. It's an option. It's an option. That's all it is an option. That's what I'm talking about.
Interesting.
And it's better than UBI. It's better than UBI. UBI
I was just, you knew what you reading my mind, because you know I'm actually
that.
Yeah, it's something that, you know, many people on our channel here, very libertarian based, MAGA based, so they might be, don't get scared. Remember, Jen is running in a blue district.
It is what it is, people.
Yeah.
But I'm very reasonable and open to all sorts of information and discussion. I will read studies. This is just based on my research and a deep dive into like, what is the best way to lift up the least of these? What is the best way to provide a social safety net for the people who need that while not materially impacting the people that don't, right? Like that's what we should all strive for. We want to be around people that are healthy. We want to be around people that are educated. And so, well, at least I do. So, you know, these are things that we're wanting to do. The problem with UBI is it's essentially the same as a flat tax. So when you have something that is evenly distributed, okay, so what you have is equality, but you don't have equity. What ends up happening is, so let's say the richest person gets $1,000 and the poorest person gets $1,000. All that's going to do is cause somebody in the middle to raise their prices because now they know that people have more expendable income. But you're not leveling out the inequality. Our problem in this country is not how rich the rich are or how poor the poor are. Our problem in this country is the difference between those two. And until we have a reconciliation between those two, our problems will continue to multiply. So, for example, the top paid person, we need to go back to where they're paid whatever percentage above the lowest paid person. I don't think everybody's entitled to a 4,000 square foot house and a yacht and whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But until we get back in the realm of proportionate income inequality or disequality, we're going nowhere. And that's just what I'm saying. That's not my opinion. Like that's just what we're seeing. And it's only getting worse. So we have to narrow that gap. Right. And the problem is the people at the top don't want to narrow that gap. They like very much being 3,000% higher than everyone else. Too fucking bad. And you know what? It's just not acceptable. It's just not acceptable to live like this. So I'm not about taking from the rich. I don't care how rich the rich are, but you can't have the poor being this poor comparatively. Right? That's the problem. You want to be that rich? Fine. You need to pull the bottom up with you as well. That's all I'm saying. So you have your gold-plated airplanes. I was actually on a private jet that had gold fixtures in the bathroom. You want that? Fine, have at it. I don't care. But the person who's cleaning the floors in the hangar where you store your airplane needs to be able to support his family too. Okay.
And that's a
So,
very reasonable approach. That's not attacking anybody. Let me
no.
follow up on this. I'll
Yeah.
comment on this comment here, and then I want to hear your thoughts on it. Mike Has Bad Needs follows up on that and says, the government doesn't tend to give up money without taking control. Before I let you go, Jen, just real quick to
Yeah.
let me add to that is, I agree with that. Mike Has Bad Needs. I'm talking about these issues personally from a standpoint of a government you can trust,
Yeah.
because quickly we can't support anything from the government.
Exactly. Then what we
we
would
don't
do
trust,
nothing.
then we
Then
do nothing. But
right.
that is what our channel wants for,
I
like
know.
we actually want the government to do nothing. But just for the sake of conversation, Mike Has Bad Needs, let's talk about it. And Jen,
Yeah.
like for example, let's say it's the government we have now. If we had Medicare for all,
Yes.
everybody would have had to got that needle for the pandemic. Yes or no?
I don't think so. Why? No.
I think they would have. I think the
No,
federal
what they
government would
would
have.
do, okay, what they would do and what I would sign off on and what I would fight against are two totally different things. The
Mhm.
concept of Medicare for the idea of government to me, let me be very clear, okay? It's not to patrol us and control us. We don't need to be patrolled and controlled. We need to have our rights defended. We need to have ourselves, basically stood up for by corporate interests. We need the government to protect us from the corporate interests or foreign interests or whatever interest. We don't need them to control and patrol. So when I talk about single payer healthcare, I'm talking about every single person gets to go to the doctor, gets to go to the dentist, gets to get their eyes checked, gets to get mental health if they need mental health treatment, whatever it is. And that money that is there for them to do that is there. That's my thing. They don't have to pay out of pocket. There's no insurance premiums. It's just there because that is our collective resources. And if you tell me that we have collective resources to go and be killing people in Gaza, and we know that we already pay more in health costs, we know that we have the worst maternal and infant mortality rates, but we have the most expensive healthcare in the world. How is that? This makes no sense to me whatsoever. We know that single payer will save us money. We know that. That's proven. And even by the most conservative Fox spewed polls that I saw in the past, it saves us like $2 billion a year or some absurd number like that to have single payer healthcare. So even the people that tried to prove that it wouldn't work couldn't even prove that. So unless somebody has evidence from any study, and again, that was the Koch brothers study. Let's be clear. That is the Koch brothers study. So we know that that is what best serves us financially. And we know that is what best serves us healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally. So why don't we have that? We don't have that because the insurance companies and big pharma have bought our government and have bought the fourth estate. And we sit here and watch pharma ads and we sit here and give excuses to people like the Sackler family who should be in prison and all of these things. But at the end of the day, that's our resources. This is our government and we should have healthcare because we want it. And it's absurd that there's people that we pay 180 grand a year and to tell us we can't afford healthcare, but they have healthcare. Think about that. Like how brainwashed and how it's like Stockholm syndrome, man. Like we really are sitting there like, so these Congress people that we pay that are our employees have great healthcare, but we can't have healthcare? People.
Yeah.
People.
And Israel has universal health care as well.
Oh, Israel's got healthcare. Israel's got healthcare and education, all of it. Like every other country that is that we consider near peers. You know what I'm saying? Every country has these things. And yet people believe that somehow we can't have that. People, we've been brainwashed. Yeah. We have been brainwashed.
And I agree with universal health care. We don't talk about it on the channel as much as I probably should. I don't like Nina Turner's good on this. There's some things I disagree with. I like her delivery. She's great. And there's some things we disagree on, but she's right on this. Your health should not be tied into your job. That's not a good position for us. We saw that during the pandemic. It's not, and just in general, it's just not a good position to be in as we go towards more of a gig economy.
It's very non-entrepreneurial. When you have people tied, literally, these are wage slaves. And now we're talking about benefit slaves. The amount of people that have to keep their job, to keep their insurance. Do you know how much innovation and creativity and stuff like that and small businesses and ventures we're missing out on because people can't afford to stop working as a cog in the machine? How does that serve us? How does that serve small businesses? I mean, like, my long-term goal are small, sustainable communities. I like decentralization. I like the idea of people walking places. I like the idea of co-ops for organic food. And I like the idea of small, sustainable, regenerative, that kind of life. How is that ever served when people have to be tied to big businesses in order to afford health insurance?
Yep. Yep.
It just does not serve. That keeps us all tied to corporations as opposed to being able to be small businesses and able to have small communities. We're not able to do that in this world. And it's very, very difficult. And it's because of things like this. We need health care.
Yep. Let me go to the $20 super chat. Great friend of show, Cyan. Cyan says, I'm just reading this for the first time. We're going to be changing topics, it looks like. Cyan says, just joined and may have missed this question being asked, but what of dissolving and or limiting squatters' rights, as there are stories of undocumented immigrants essentially stealing homes at the owner's expense? I don't know if you've seen those videos coming out and
No.
discussions.
No, I haven't. But I will say this, in a lot of things like this, and especially when we're talking about stories regarding immigrants, migrants, they pick outliers and they pick incendiary things purposefully. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that this has not happened. But you have to look at it in the context of percentage of times that happens versus percent amount of people, right? Because they will find the most incendiary stories. Because at the end of the day, is that Cyan? They want us to be kicking down. And anytime that people are diverting your attention, your energy, anything to the people that have less political power than you, you're being duped. The only way you need to be punching is up. I'm not saying this isn't a problem. What I'm saying is it's also a distraction, and it is by no means the main problem. If we can even go into getting started why we have so many of these immigrants coming in from what we've done to their home countries. We could get into all sorts of stuff there. Like, I don't need to get into it. What I'm saying is don't look at outliers. Don't look at incendiary stories. Look at mass numbers. Look at what is most likely, what is most happening, and focus on the bigger issues. So I believe that's happening, but I just think there's way bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything there. I mean, obviously, you're not for people just stealing homes.
Of course
so
not.
I think that's a very poignant kind of point that you made there with making sure. I think the concern from Cyan and others there, and again, thank you, Cyan, for the $20 super chat, is going at politicians. So I don't think Cyan is going at the immigrants.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like going at the politicians.
I do, but the problem is they're the one they're distracting her into being on that as the issue, as opposed to the issue is, why do we have businesses that don't want to pay a living wage? And that's why they're having all these people that they're allowing to come in from the border. Why aren't we penalizing the businesses? Why are we penalizing the people that are desperate? So I'm not saying that the immigration problem isn't a problem. What I'm saying is that we don't need to be penalizing the most desperate and oppressed people. We need to be looking for solutions to help the least of these while punishing the people that are creating the problem, which are the people at the top. And the politicians know this, and they don't care, because they're probably being paid from the same companies that are creating this problem in those businesses that want these cheap labor workers to be coming here. So this has to do with how we treat labor in this country. This has to do with right to work states and how we have labor that we're able to treat like crap. You know, it's like it's all connected. We need strong labor. We need to have a living wage. And then you can have an immigration policy that could be suitable. But you're not going to have that while you're having getting people bussed and trained and flown in to have cheap labor. And the people at the top of that food chain have no penalties. See, that's the problem.
Yeah. The self-care Maven says, Jen, you rock. Thank you for the explanation. Yeah, she's dropping bars today, as always. Like this, I need you running for office like 24/7, Jen. Like you just on another level.
I need that. Oh my God.
I know. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
No. It's like, this is how I describe it. Being a candidate, having a campaign, it's like you're on a roller coaster and you're in the front seat and the back seat is on fire, and you have to get to the end of the ride before the fire catches up to the front of the car. That's what a campaign feels like. And it's 24/7. I cannot stress this enough. It's not like one of those things where people say I work all the time. It isn't that you're working all the time. You're campaigning 24/7. Like it's a whole feeling.
Yeah. Speaking of that,
Harsh.
visit the website, gen2024.org. Visit the website. There is an event coming up on Thursday. Yeah, with Nina Turner. And
Nina Turner.
yeah. Is it basically just, tell us again about the event.
So it's going to be, it's a Zoom event, and it's going to be a discussion. We're going to talk, I think we're definitely going to be talking Palestine. There were a couple of other key issues that we're going to be talking about, things of interest to all. We're not like avoiding topics. We're just trying to have some sort of agenda. But people can come on. I think it's as little as $5. It's just helping us spread the word. But really, it's come on and participate in a interesting conversation. You can ask questions. You could talk to me. You could talk to Nina. And quite honestly, if you've never heard Nina, and especially when she's being like in a nice little insulated, when it's a nice small audience, it's very potent. You know what I'm saying? Nina's potent.
Oh, she's one of the best, out there. I mean, I first found out about her when she was a spokesperson for Bernie, I believe, officially. Man, those were days. What about the Bernie days? Man, I love the Bernie days. Those were it was so, man, the energy, and then the Bernie and Trump energy. Just going back to that, man, I like the energy on both sides. I know everybody wasn't there but it was just, man, it felt so good. Then it crashed and burned. And you said that you were out on the DNC because they obviously rigged it. It's an internal, it's a private process, right? Is that what they were able to use and say that's why they were able to rig it against him?
Well, yeah, they are. It's a private club. They're a private club. They can do whatever they want. They don't have to listen to their delegates. They can decide whatever they want at the convention. And they've done it before. And it's possible they'll do it again. Look, Kim even said she had a whole interesting, like, sort of prophecy on this, just sort of postulating about how this was done in 68, and that what could happen is at the Democratic convention, basically they decide Joe Biden isn't really fit to be doing this, and they usher in somebody and get enough votes at the convention. And it could be somebody like a Gavin Newsom and again, I'm not saying this in any supportive or cheerleading way, just like historically it could happen. But the point is the Democratic club they couldn't care less what their voters think. Clearly, they didn't even have a primary. You can't get more of screw our members if we're not even going to have a primary. That's as screw your members as you get. But, and now they're angry that RFK is running as an independent. Like, I don't understand how they don't see this. But, their strategy is not working. It's just not working. And as far as, me, like we said, it's strategy. I don't know. I don't know what to, the whole, we need more parties, but at the end of the day, I want no parties. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we let you go, if you don't mind playing this clip, it's right on point with what you're talking about with RFK. And I want to get your thoughts on this. A lot of people are talking about it.
But do you really believe that when people talk about the threat to democracy that Trump poses, do you really think that is an equal evil to Biden?
I mean, listen, I can make the argument that President Biden is a much worse threat to democracy. And the reason for that is President Biden is the first candidate in history, the first president in history that has used the federal agencies to censor political speech, so to censor his opponent. I can say that because I just won a case in the Federal Court of Appeals and now before the Supreme Court. It shows that he started censoring not just me. For 37 hours after he took the oath of office, he was censoring me. No president in the country has ever done that. The greatest threat to democracy is not somebody who questions election returns, but a president of the United States who used the power of his office to force the social media companies, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, to open a portal and give access to that portal to the FBI, to the CIA, to the IRS, to CISA, to NIH, to censor his political critics. President Biden, for the first president in history, to use his power over the Secret Service to deny Secret Service protection to one of his political opponents for political reasons. He's weaponizing the federal agencies. Those are really critical threats to democracy.
What do you think on that? He went on fire there for a second.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, sometimes he's so on point with things like that, specifically with things about like the inner workings of government, the deep state, calling out, like he's definitely good about that. He's so wrong on Israel. But I agree. I mean, but I've said for a long time, whether or not you would say Trump or Biden is a bigger threat to democracy, I would argue we've already lost our democracy. The fact that we're sitting here and having this discussion as to who's worse between a twice or how many times impeached president and somebody committing a genocide, I would suggest that our democracy has already been lost. And so at this point, well, that's the thing. When people say, oh, Dr. West is a spoiler or so-and-so is a spoiler, how can you spoil something that's already rotten? And by the way, to the people that are sitting there saying, but what about Trump or what about Trump? But you're the ones who were perfectly okay putting our entire governmental apparatus up for sale. You know, you're all on suckling at the same corporate teat. How did you think this was going to go? So I honestly, I have no doubt that I can't verify what he's saying as far as those things happening to him. I don't know that. I also don't know if he's right that no other president has done that. I don't know about any of that, whether it's true or not. But yeah, I think at this point to say that Trump is the biggest threat to democracy is you're really not seeing the forest through the trees here. Like we're already there. That's what I think.
If you don't know why I rock with Jen Perlman, I can't help you at this point if you listen to this whole live or any clip of this live. And I really appreciate you. Any last things? I don't want to keep you too long. You're busy in the middle of it, and I've seen you all over the place. Any upcoming appearances that we should be looking out for?
I'm going on with Willie Bragg, but I think that he doesn't do lives. Okay. So for all I'm not sure he doesn't do lives. But let me see what's coming up on the calendar. I know I'm going on with Jordan Cheriton on Status Quo on Thursday. I will be on that. And that will be right before our fundraiser. And then we have our show that night. So basically I'll be sitting in front of this camera for hours on Thursday is what it sounds like to me. But so I'll be on with Jordan. And then I have something. Oh, that doesn't involve anybody here. That's local. And then on Friday, I have an interview with author Ken McCarthy, but I don't even know what kind of interview that is. I have to there's so many things in this calendar, man. I can't even, but guys, definitely if you have any interest, check out the meet and greet on Thursday night with Nina. It's going to be at 8:00 and I think it's going to be fun. We'll have an interesting conversation. You know, how about Jimmy Dore? Jimmy Dore has basically ghosted me my entire existence on the internet. So
that hurts me so much because I like Jimmy Dore so much, and I obviously like you and Peter, and I don't know what happened there, but
I could tell. I know what happened there.
You told, what? Real quick, since we brought it up, what happened with Jimmy Dore?
It had to do with the candidate who ran against Debbie before I did. Is friends with Jimmy, and had very maliciously and said stuff about me to Jimmy, told him I took money from George Soros, said all this stuff about me, that I was like a plant for the party and just all this stuff. And so Jimmy just decided to blow me off and ghost me. And so he purposefully ignored us and he knew I was running. He even came to town once and I went and brought him some gummies and he did a show and talked all about how horrible Debbie was, knew I was in the audience, knew I was running against Debbie. And then had the guy who ran before me stand up and take a bow for it and didn't even mention that in an audience full of people that could have been volunteers, if not voters. And so he made it clear that I don't think he is not on my mission is what it really comes down to. I don't know what mission he's on, but it's not mine. And that's fine. But it is not through anything that I've ever done or said or whatever. It's just they sort of decided early on that they didn't like me or whatever. And so and this with RBN, and it's the same thing. Like those guys just want to hate me. They want to spend an inordinate amount of time hating on me. But there's nothing I'm going to do about that.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. As for the RBN stuff, I like them a lot. And I'm going to say this is not Jen here, but anybody who's racially identity first in any space, a Republican, I talk about it in all these spaces. Yeah, they will turn on you in a second. But I respect their work. I mean, all I do is watch, and they got good takes, and you got good takes. So I hate to see everybody's so fragmented. But and then part of it too is algorithm. So if I say something I hate this person, then you're gonna get more views. So, but But you're out here, you got your own thing, your own firebrand going, and I just wish
do.
you the best. And I'm just hoping that you can pull this out. I mean, I like how the stars are aligning. Got to
Yeah.
be positive and focused. And if you feel what you're hearing here, she said it. The thing is, this donation is national. If you want to help her in that local level, if you want to have somebody in Congress that is relatable, that doesn't hate you, that came on a channel called Middle Maga, she didn't even care.
No, I don't care.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Like that's not a small thing. So I greatly appreciate you, Jen. Any
Absolutely.
last?
Yes, I am running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And what I say, and the Republicans here will know this, and they all know this. Yes, I am running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in a Democratic primary. And for people who don't like Dems, I hear you, I feel you. But the local Republicans and libertarians and people here that I have that are on my side that support me, even though they can't vote for me, that are just very supportive and tell their Democrat friends to vote for me, they accept that they're stuck with a Democrat. So it's like, I understand you might feel sorry for them, but they're stuck with a Democrat. So the choice is her or me. And that's really what it comes down to.
That's funny.
The lesser of two evils.
I would never, I just want to make sure clear. I would never label you that.
No, but just to a Republican who knows that they're sort of stuck with a Democrat. Like that's, I just try to think of how they would sell that to some of their friends. Look, we're stuck with one of them anyway.
Yeah. Well, people sometimes ask me about it because I go on with authoritarians that you would say authoritarian right. And we have great conversations. I go on with you. And what my comment to that is, I don't, maybe it might come across that way, but I don't ever pretend to have all the answers.
Right.
So I listen to everybody. And this live right here, I just learned new things. And I'm like, whoa, that might tweak my position. I don't know.
Yeah.
Though the thing that I will do is I will adopt whatever the best take is. I don't care where it's from.
That's what I do, and I always say I will support non-corporate conservatives over corporate Democrats any day. Any day. I will work with those people. I will talk with those people. I prefer them. So, when we look at people and we talk about Thomas Massey on our show all the time, Peter's a big fan. So, people that don't meet with lobbyists that want to do what's in the best interest of the majority of people are people I can work with. It's that simple. It's really that simple. These are people that if you want to all work on the best interest of people and you're not answering to special interests, then we can come to some reasonable conclusions and come up with some answers. So that's how I approach it. But yeah, corporate people, they're not having an honest conversation. So.
Nope. That's what you got here. Jen, you can check her out on the channel Generational Change as well.
Yes.
And thank you. You know what?
Thank you.
You know what, Jen? You were the first show I ever did an appearance on.
Really?
Yep. Do you remember that years ago?
I mean, I remember you coming on, but I don't think I knew it was like the first time. Cool.
That was the first time I ever appeared on someone else's show. Yeah.
But we love doing that. Like we always like to invite people to come on because it builds the web. Mm-hmm. That's how you do it. If all the content creators could do, and again, sadly, there's infighting with people, but I do my best to build bridges.
Yeah, for sure. And she doesn't hold back. Jen Perlman, thanks so much. I appreciate you.
Osiris. Bye, guys.
Bye. That's my girl right there, man. Jen is great, man. I just love the energy, man. And I always say you are who you hang with, and I want to hang with somebody like that. That's for sure. I'm just going to chill a little bit in the aftermath of this, and I'm allegedly working. So let me check my email real quick. Nothing like ratting on yourself on wax. Like I need Jamal Bowman to pass a non-ratting on yourself streamer bill, because that's basically what he was doing with the hip hop bill. I believe it was. So if rappers rat on themselves on lyrics, you can't use it in court. What? You ratted on yourself. So I need you to expand that bill. It didn't pass, but it's a clown bill, to expand that bill to streamers. If I rat on myself on stream, then I'm protected with my compensation from work. Yeah, let's take a look. Let's take a look and see what the aftermath is from the interview. Cyan's still hanging around. Appreciate you. Said a link on the X feed. Couldn't do it here. Oh, a link to something? I didn't see that, but thank you. I haven't seen you a minute in the live, Cyan. Great to see. I'm trying to work too. Should get Iggy on her show. Yeah, Yeah, oh, that'd be great because she kind of talks with anybody, everybody. Yeah, that'd be a good kind of culture kind of clash because he's more. I don't know how else to describe it, but he's more Christian authoritarian is with the proper term for it. She said yes, she did. Might be wrong, man. Y'all are gonna clip everything where we have the disagreement, man. We had so many agreements on the live, but that's true. She said she can't talk to people if they quote scripture. Now, let me say what my interpretation of that was. I didn't get to follow up on that because we were moving the conversation. My interpretation is, and I understand where she's coming from. She's not against. Let me show you. I mean, just to make sure you don't have the wrong impression. She had on her feed here let me look at it right now. A clip or just a little shout out to Easter. So I just want to show this. She's not some type of against your religion type of person. And let me find it here on Easter. She had a very good statement, I thought. Authentic, very authentic. And just so before I give my explanation here, Jen Perlman on Easter states, Happy Easter to all celebrating. As a Jewish woman, I deeply value the significance of this day across faiths. Let's unite in honoring its rich historical and spiritual importance, standing together to uphold religious freedoms for all, both at home and abroad. It's hashtag Easter 2024 in the classic purple, orange, Jen Perlman for Congress colors. She's really branded that really well. So what I think she means by that is, how can I argue your faith? I don't really get into that. I don't care if people quote scripture because I'm not really knowledgeable in scripture, but I'm also a Christian. I have no problem saying Christ is king. And that's typically the type of person she's probably talking about. And I think she's saying that when you quote scripture, then what are you trying to convert her? Or like, how do you not argue, but how do you have a discussion around that? I don't think it means literally if you're quoting scripture. It's almost like if you're quoting scripture and we're talking about political policy, what am I going to do with that? It's the way I interpreted that. But that's it's a good call out. Might be wrong. Did you just start it or did you hold on to that the whole time? That was early in the interview. Oh, thank you. Might be wrong. Enjoyed the interview. Appreciate you. That's the homie there. Thank you so much. She's way too pro-immigrant for my liking. Here's my thing. I understand if she was in your district, but if you were in her district, it would be a blue district. So who would you want? Would you want Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or I can't even say her name? Would you want Debbie, or would you want Jen Perlman? I think that would be a no-brainer. Maybe I don't say vote for people just because there's two choices, though. So vote for your heart, but I think that would make sense. When you say she's pro-immigration, I didn't follow up again on that one. I didn't, because I think we kind of had moved on from it, but she is, she never really said she was like pro-immigration. I actually heard her on, I believe it was with Kim Iverson, talking about and said, if you want to close the border, I have no problem with closing the border. Like what we really mean by saying close the border. But then she wants people treated humanely as well and figuring it out. So her from a Democrat standpoint, her stance on the immigration is actually solid, I think. That was a good conversation. Thank you. Appreciate it. Debbie is a Clintonite. Yes. Yeah. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was involved in the DNC with the email scandal. And then she resigned. I have to look it up to even remember what exactly happened with her. But she was in charge, but she was like a top Clinton person. Then after that, in 2016, I believe that's when that was, she joined the Clinton campaign. I forgot what her title was there, but she's straight up Clinton. That's why I put Clinton in the thumbnail. She's straight up Clinton. Mike Has Bad Knees says, I never blame the immigrants for taking advantage of the system that our elites have created. That's a powerful comment by Mike Has Bad Knees. Let me absorb that one more time. He said, I've never blamed the immigrants for taking advantage of the system that our elites have created. Yeah. So what he's saying is I don't punch down. And I know that's why I kind of followed up. Like, I know Cyan doesn't punch down. We notice a problem. My parents are immigrants, legal immigrants, but it doesn't matter. I'm living in an area where I know a lot of illegal immigrants. I don't. It's. I agree. I don't look at them as the problem. They're trying to get a better life for themselves, for the most part. But the problem is the politician. So I'm not punching down. I'm punching at the ones who are supposed to be working for us. And this is just complete madness, what we have at the border. I never even talked about that scene, that video where they had them they ran up on the border. Did you see that? And then the judge, I don't know what happened. Did the judge let them out or something? Judge, immigration, border, surge. Okay. Surge immigration judges to our border. This is, I just saw the headline, so I don't know. I'm just going to read it here on the fly. El Paso judge. So there was a video that came out a while back that showed, without these videos online, I mean, the mainstream, I don't think would have covered that if they even did. So looking at this story, El Paso judge orders release of migrants. El Paso judge orders release of migrants accused of border riot. So this was the border riot that literally they just ran across the border and kind of ran over, it looked like the National Guard. Migrants breach concertina razor wire after National Guard failed to hold them back. El Paso magistrate judge on Easter Sunday ordered the release of migrants accused in a border riot when a stampede overwhelmed National Guard troops along the Rio Grande. Court officials noted that undocumented migrants will stay jailed if there is a federal immigration hold blocking their release. The Texas Department of Public Safety booked about 220 people on riot charges. Can we call it an invasion yet? Are we at that point now where it's not just hyperbole anymore? 39 of those have been processed to be released into U.S. Immigration and Customs. I don't even understand what that means. Presiding Magistrate Judge Humberto Acosta. Is it fair for me to wonder if Humberto is unbiased here? Humberto Acosta, who is this? I'm just trying to figure out who he is. That's the judge? Is that the judge? Am I reading this right? Yeah, the judge. Okay. I'm just trying to see what conflict of interest he might have. I don't know. I'll have to look at that. Made his ruling on Sunday during an online teleconference bond hearing where he accused the El Paso District Attorney's Office of not being ready to proceed with detention hearings. So what does that mean? It's the ruling of the court that all of the rioting participation cases will be released. What? On their own recognizance. So hearing about them were waived in an unusual tactic. This is a pretty fair, balanced article by El Paso Times. El Paso public defender Kelly Childress requested the defendants remain at the El Paso County Jail because if they were released and taken to immigration center, then defense attorneys would be unable to communicate. I don't know. I have to say, I don't even know what that means. Somebody tell me. I don't know why I can't. I have no idea what they mean by that. Don't punch down, Osiris. What, on Humberto? Humberto's a judge. It's fair. So if my cousin Bethany says it's fair to ask that question. I'm not saying anything. I don't know. This is the first time I really looked at it. Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, we got to figure out what's going on with that, man. If you literally rush up on the border, man, you can't be walking around like ain't nothing happened. That's crazy. But let's take a look and see this. There's a couple topics that I'm just gonna take hard right and left turns. This is a hard right turn, you could say. There's this gaming group out here called Melanin Gamers. And there's a lot going on in the video game space that I'm out of. I got to talk to homie Ray Studios, who's in it, and what's going on with all this battle in the gaming space. But big picture, video games are a place where you often go to escape. the work, politics, life, and responsibilities just for a little bit. You have to do it in moderation, of course, but it's just like anything else, golf or whatever else. So you have a lot of young people, especially, and older people too. But it's typically, you're typically 15 to 30 probably could be on their hardcore, that they're escaping this matrix. They don't want to talk about the stuff we talked about with Jen Perlman on that live because they just don't want to talk about it. It's like you feel powerless. You start feeling like you can't make change. You don't have that passion to keep talking about these things, which is perfectly fine. But what they do is they go to video games. They go to other walks of life. And what we see is authoritarians don't let you go. Come here. You can't escape this. So this group here is doing something in which they're saying there's toxicity in gaming and they need to rate the online gaming community. What? Warning, this video contains graphic content. Now, I'm not going to play it because they're going to say some stuff on it, but I'm just going to go through it. And you can see them showing that there's violence. So some of them are more mature violence. And then the video goes on to show some people, using choice language, like they're trash talking and they're using insensitive type of language at this point in this section of the video. And it's supposed to sound scary. And I'm like, that's the most fun part about gaming. Somebody calls you a N-word with a hard ER, and then you take out the scope, and you get him, you're like, got him. You're like, yeah. Was that you? Was that you, Colin? Was that you trying to talk trash? This nigga got you. That was the most fun, man. So this is a group called Melanin Gamers. Just so weird. Man, they're so weird and cringe. Melanin Gamers, the world's first ever rating system to identify toxicity in online gaming. Melanin Gamers and Help Keep Watch have launched the first rating system identifying online gaming toxicity. Please check out the rating system for yourself here. And that's it's a power play. If you can put yourself in there when a social credit score comes, I don't think it's coming from the government. I think it's coming from Google. It's coming from OpenAI with their, signing up allegedly, potentially. It's coming up from a private company because you asshats, and I don't mean people watching, you asshats have allowed, oh, I still have Jen on here? I don't want to get, hold up. Oops. Is Jen still on here? Okay.